farmers and people that I know that do truck farming for their whole lives, and they say they keep thinking it's a bad year, but it goes on for decades where the weather is just never the way it's been, and it's all screwed up. And the media is like, well, yeah, you're not paying money to the government for carbon dioxide. You know, carbon dioxide's not natural, it's evil. But I mean, and then you learn we're in a carbon dioxide starved environment compared to when it's been. It's almost like the leaders are space aliens who are terraforming the planet to their atmosphere like they live or something. I mean, I'm not saying I really believe that, but that's almost becoming plausible for how destructive and psychopathic the people running things are. And then, again, they admit, I mean, they had a 1978 UN treaty that we signed on to not do weather manipulation. But then they tell the public, oh, it doesn't exist. I mean, it's just crazy. We're living in a matrix.
Well, that treaty was the ENMOD treaty. And Dr. Nick Begich, who is in Why in the World Are They Spraying, explained an exemption. Countries can use this. The exemption was this. Countries can use this technology over their own soil. Scott Stevens, even Nick, spoke to us about controlling the weather. You can literally control weather thousands of miles away by putting aerosols into one area of the Earth, actually manipulating the jet stream and having the affected outcome of what you desire, again, thousands of miles away. So when you manipulate weather, it doesn't get to the border of the U.S. and say, oh, you know, I can't go any further because there's an ENMOD treaty. So that appears to be the loophole in this. About the genetic modification, this is, again, genetically modifying every natural system, including forests. We now have a company called Arbigen, which is genetically modifying forests. What this is, Alex, when I go back to Hawaii, we grow our food naturally. We are not dependent on the corporation because we're dependent on nature. This is an attack on nature. And through the death and destruction of natural systems, these corporations literally usurp the authority of nature or the authority of God and bring it under corporate authority so that it can be controlled by these corporations, which are controlled by these entities. And that's what this is. Again, every major religion has spoken about this, and we are the ones that have been called to address this. Alex, I'll tell you why. We still have natural systems, but they are dying very quickly. We are still getting some...
No. It's a monopoly. They're going to make it where the Earth can't naturally live and we can't naturally produce. That's their plan. And then we have to go get a genetically engineered baby or crops to live. It is a total monopoly takeover by the eugenicist, and it's all there. The reason we never made our film, going back 4 or 5 years ago, was we just year after year compiled reams of documents and proof to where we couldn't even present it all. It's so nightmare. Go ahead.
Sorry for cutting you off. It's almost like we're living in a sci-fi movie. Alex, these elitists, I like to call them many different things, which we shouldn't say on air, they want to be the source of life. So through death and destruction, they are disaster capitalists. And again, they have this godlike power. And that's why we're seeing these really ridiculous things. So, you know, this issue goes so deep. Barry and I could have made a film that was literally 20 hours long in addressing many different components. We decided to go with weather control, because it appears to be the #1 agenda, but it also outlines the basic principles of these programs, which again is to destroy natural systems so that these corporations...
It's unbelievable, but if everybody... See, things that are so big and so horrible tend to just keep going on because no one can believe it's happening. But if everybody saw your film, if everybody out there got an issue going in their local area, enough people within the system are going to be able to turn this around. We've got to force this out into a public debate. 5 years ago, you'd talk about this and get laughed at. Now the White House science czar comes out and admits they're looking at doing it and always pushing it like it's a good thing PR-wise because they know we're waking up to them. Let's go to phone calls for our guest. Let's go ahead and talk to Lisa in California, who's listening on 1320 AM KOMY. Go ahead, Lisa, you're on the air.
Yeah, I wanted to call attention to what is a wet subatomic electrical metal mist. Like attract like. We have all these metal particulates, and of course we have poison in our bodies too. And then if you see the Earth in outer space, it is encased in a... I feel Agenda 21 also wants to encapsulate us in a grid of electricity that goes on a subatomic level throughout our bodies all the time. increased maybe by a cell phone, whatever.
No. The globalists admit they're doing electromagnetic. In fact, Dr. Begich always points out there's 10 times literally more patents on electromagnetic manipulation than for chemical manipulation. That is going on. DARPA admits it. The details remain classified.
Yeah, I'm actually the daughter of a dead NSA consultant analyst who was the head to the governor of California when I was born.
Interesting.
Are you gone?
No. We're here, ma'am. Do you have a quick question so we can come back and answer it after the break?
The beginning of time. I never heard anything from you that I have a problem with other than personal opinions. You're meat and potatoes and everything, and I'm just way out there. But, you know, it's hell staying alive, and I wish somebody could comp me some beauty and some health, you know, but it's...
Well, ma'am, God bless you. We appreciate your call. We're going to come back and jam some more calls in with our guest, do a little bit of overdrive so we can get to Rob first up, then Gary and Bill and Karen and others. Everybody wants to talk about weather and chemtrails straight ahead. Folks, it sounds over the top to say there's all this weather modification going on, but so much of it is publicly admitted and declassified. Just like I've been telling you forever, sodium fluoride's killing you deader than a hammer, and now they just admit it in mainstream news, but no one stops them. And it is an incredibly wicked program and plan. We're talking to the maker of the new film that we carry at InfoWarsShop.com, discounted, the free citizen rulebook if you get it there. He is the director and producer, Michael J. Murphy. Why in the world are they spraying? He also made What in the World Are They Spraying? And we're going back to your phone calls right now. Rob in North Carolina, what is your take on all this?
Well, I got two things. If I could ask you a question after we're done with the weather question, Alex. I actually live in North Carolina. We're about 3,500 feet up in the air. We're in the mountains. And I've got a 12-kilowatt solar system at the house. And we actually, when I first heard about chemtrails, I was like, yeah, that's kind of crazy sounding, but I see them up above, and it kind of creates like a quilt pattern. And actually, when that happens, the generation off the panels is about 25% less. So it actually affects our power.
NASA, and again, not that we just trust NASA, other governments and groups. A decade ago, the Earth was 20-something% darker. Now it's 30% darker. Guys, type in Earth now 30% darker just into the search engine and show people. No, the Earth is darker right about the percentage you said. I mean, this is so big. Look, when I was a kid, I lived in Dallas. I lived in Dallas until I was about 6 years old, and the trails disappeared. I lived outside Dallas with the airport. Planes didn't leave trails except in the winter. They were ice crystals. They dissipated in minutes. They don't dissipate, many of them. Yeah, there's a London Guardian. Earth is 20% darker, says expert, but I've got numbers of over 30%. Comments on that, Mr. Murphy?
Absolutely documented. Global dimming as well will be a good search to use for that. Very well documented. Even NOAA has done a report about a year and a half ago that showed a significant increase in stratospheric aerosols.
And they admitted, they said condensation trails are doing it.
Well, they say for the trails, correct. And Dane Wiggins...
But they didn't say it was a chemtrail. They say, oh, the normal ice crystals are doing it. Really? Why did an ice crystal change from when I was 20 till now?
And they failed to document in that study, the source of the aerosols. They are talking about the trails dimming, but for the specific aerosols that we're talking about in another study, they did not source where the aerosols were coming from or the content of that. We know what the content is from rain tests. They're the primary ingredient in geoengineering programs. But Dane Wigington, who is a solar expert, came into this issue about 6 years ago when he began to notice he has the largest solar-powered home in northern California. He started getting 60 to 70% declines in his solar power, and he said, what is going on? He went outside.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to have to hold you over. Stay there. I want to finish with the caller. Folks, I don't just get up here and say something, no matter how crazy it sounds, just to say it to have fun. I say it because it's backed up. the solar companies, as he mentioned, are coming out and saying something's going on. This is so big. It's like in the Matrix cartoon. They made a Matrix cartoon, and in the last episode, the government blacks out the sky to kill the robots that operate off solar. So the robots just grab humans and use them as the heat source. Now, I'm not saying that's real. I'm saying they're throwing all this in our faces, and it's so big. The Earth is over 30% darker now. And they admit in the government studies that trails are doing it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is so big. Caller, real fast. What was your other question?
I wanted to ask you.
All right. Real fast, going back to Rob. Rob, 30-second question. Hit me with the question. Hit me. I want to get to a few other callers here.
All right. The Federal Reserve had a charter back in 1913 for 100 years. Obviously, we're coming up on that.
Yes, big deal.
I wonder if that, yeah, no big deal, or is it a big deal?
No, I'm saying it's a big deal.
Okay, and then the other one was how that might tie into I guess the United States went bankrupt in 1933, literally bankrupt.
By design, yeah, they and they're organizing us into a new bankruptcy to rape us even more.
Yeah, I'm just kind of wondering, I mean, obviously we're coming up on the 100-year charter, and I've seen stories both ways, but I'm just it just seems to me kind of odd that the whole financial system's kind of caving in, and guess what, there's 100 years coming up, so. No,
absolutely. No, it's an admitted organized collapse by design to bring us into this point we're in now. The globalists all admit that. In fact, John B. Wells had a guest on who's written a book about the organized collapse, who I want to get on the show. He had a big show Saturday with 4 guests. I meant to give you that to the producer. I want to get that guest he had on. Let's take another call now here for our guest, who's been holding the longest here. Bill in Georgia. Got a question for the maker of Why in the World Are They Spraying?
Hey, Alex, how you doing today?
Pretty good, my friend.
Yeah, I'm a retired Navy chief, 20 years of service, retired with an honorable discharge. And I tell you what, between you and YouTube, I have woken up amazingly. And looking up in the sky and seeing the chemtrails on a daily basis is really ticking me off.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole shadow system operating like they're another species or something under the national security umbrella that's not national security at all.
Exactly. And I was in a compartmentalized environment my entire 20-year career. And I had blinders on for my entire 20-year career. I went from my mother's womb to the industrialized school system, straight into the military, and had blinders on my entire life. And the next thing I know, I get out of the military, and I'm starting to wake up. And it was you and YouTube that helped wake me up.
Well, that's an amazing story. We should do a whole show about people's awakenings, just about their awakenings. Let me ask you this. Even though it's frightening to know the truth now, do you not feel more alive than you did before?
Yes, sir. I, without a doubt, do. I consider myself a micro farmer now. I've started a garden. I've got chickens. I've got goats. I'm trying to self-sustain myself. And the problem is, I can't self-sustain myself if they're putting beryllium oxide and aluminum oxide on my plants and on my animals.
What a beautiful call. Absolutely. You know, to hear about your awakening, and now you're trying to get ready. And like our guest was saying, our caller calls in and says, my solar panels don't get as much when they're doing this. And then officially, we've got solar panel experts saying up to 60%. Thank you so much, sir, for the call. Final comments on that. Michael J. Murphy, maker of Why in the World Are They Spraying?
Well, we are seeing pilots now waking up to this issue. But, you know, I notice when I'm up in the air, it's very difficult to see the trails because you're level with them. So when we're on the ground, it's much more profound to be able to identify it. But again, pilots are waking up around the world. But I do encourage people to start gardens, to live independently from the system. However, you know, Alex, like your website, Prisonplanet, anybody who, so to speak, escapes and gets off of the plantation by growing their own food and becoming independent, this is an attack on that. They're literally trying to make it impossible to grow off of nature and essentially worship God. They want us worshiping the beast. What is the beast? I call the beast this governmental corporate conglomerate.
That's right. They want you in their fake plastic city where the whole world looks like, all the glittering lights and things of Times Square. They want your soul. Very well said, my friend.